So let me tell you about this time. I was up in San Luis Obispo at the Graduate, and I bumped into Chuck Liddell, and I punched that mother. No, I didn't. I'm just kidding. I said, like, since you're messing with my boy. No, actually, I did bump into him at the Graduate. He used to go to the Graduate all the time. And then, but this has nothing to do with today's show. Nothing to do with today's show. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Glenn Lawrence, and I'm with the most wonderful.
What's up, guys? Gia MaCool.
And today we got a show for you. Yes, we do. I mean, usually when we talk about these things, we hear things like, relationships, so that marriage ain't worth it, that there's no marriageable women. All of them are 304s and hoes, right? Or like these guys ain't shit. We don't need no man. Yeah. Or, don't get with the single mommy. Don't get with the single dad. Like, these are garbage. Well, today, our guest is going to kind of rock your world. Wouldn't you say, Gia?
Yes. Especially for the ladies listening, this conversation matters because the internet loves to romanticize about blended families, right? Or the flip side is they like to demonize them, right? But nobody actually talks about what happens, cost that happens, like what goes on, right? They don't talk about the other side. So today we're going to be uncovering that because a stepmom is not playing house. Like dating a man with kids is an optional parenting. You're not just like having them for fun. Like some of these moms, some of these women are taking on those kids as their own. And we are going to be uncovering all of that today.
Oh yeah. So you ready? I'm ready.
Let's go.
Let's get into it.
Tonight, we're bringing on a woman who didn't just date a man in the public eye. She survived the blast radius that comes with it and helped rebuild the man behind the headlines.
Most people know the name Tito Ortiz, better known as the Huntington Beach Bad Boy, one of the most dominant champions in UFC history. A man who fought his way from nothing into superstardom, titles, fame, chaos, cameras in his face. The rise was loud, and the fall was louder.
Everyone remembers the tabloid storm, the breakup, the custody battles, the public mess with Jenna Jameson. Tito wasn't just fighting opponents in the cage. He was fighting for his future, his kids, his sanity in the real world.
And right when most people would have run the other direction, Amber Ortiz stepped in. Not for clout, not for attention, not for a paycheck, but because she's built differently.
While Tito's world was collapsing, leaving the UFC, businesses falling apart, trying to figure out who was outside the spotlight, who was there for him, Amber didn't flinch. She stood beside him when stand beside him cost her everything.
The woman who actually showed up when life got ugly, not when life was glamorous. She helped raise his boys like they were her own. She became the helpmate every man prays for, but few ever find. She didn't just date a celebrity, she became the wife of a man who was rebuilt. And through it all, something even bigger happened.
Tito, Amber, and their entire family found Christ. Together, baptized together, and rebuilt themselves together.
So today we're bringing her on to talk about the truth most people are too scared to touch.
What's it actually like dating a man in the public eye? What does it mean to commit to a man who's carrying real scars, real battles, and real consequences? The differences between dating a single mom and dating a single dad, and how a woman steps into the role of a stepmom and ends up becoming the mom who actually raises those children.
Amber MaCool isn't just a guest. She's a blueprint for loyal, feminine strength in a modern world that hates both. You're not going to want to miss this episode because it's a knockout. So make sure you tune in to Glenn Lawrence and Gia MaCool, only on Relentless Network. Yeah, just tune in because Amber's here.
Hi. Oh, you guys are going to make me tear up again. I'm like, I'm going to get teary.
It's your life.
I know. It's crazy. It's like
a movie.
It's several movies, probably could be like a documentary and several books.
Not many people are able to see that, get a chance to like witness that and see the progression. So it's a privilege. Definitely. It's a blessing.
Yeah. Well, let's actually introduce her and welcome her again to the show, properly. Welcome, Amber. I'm Glenn. Gia. Yeah. So today, we kind of want to get to know a little bit about your story because your guys' story is very, very interesting. It is not a statistic. It is defied so many different obstacles that would normally have taken out couples, there's couples that go through less than what you guys have gone through and haven't even made it as long as you have. So please, like, tell us, like, help us out. Understand, give us some of the goods. I'm writing a book right now that I need to know these answers.
Yes. Well, honestly, it's strange because I think a lot of people weren't raised the way I was, and I was raised by a single mother. So I know both sides of this coin. And for me, my mom has always, and I will always believe this as well, as there's no such thing as a step and there's no such thing as a half. So I don't ever, like, I don't use those words. And because I notice a lot of people using those words, but it almost feels visceral. It feels like negative. And when I decided to step in and be the mom for my boys, I never wanted to use the word step or bonus or whatever it is that people like come up with, because I don't think that's fair. It really minimizes your connection with that person. And my mom taught me that at a young age. You know, she said, you know, when I had my stepdad or my stepmom, right? And she was like, you know, it hurts their feelings. So they probably really like it if you call him daddy or you call her mom. And she's like, and no, your dad, and I won't care. It's just a thing you do out of respect. And so I've always been that way. You know, I have 4 siblings. We don't have, you know, the same parents. You know, I'm the only one from my mom and dad, but I would never say my half brother or my half sister. It doesn't make any sense. So when I stepped into this, you know, that was the easy part. If I can tell you, stepping in and being their mom was the easy part. And they actually, it's funny to say and think right now, but they were like the anchor. They anchored me into that relationship because things were really freaking hard, like super hard. So when I wanted to give up and when I felt like exhausted and I felt overwhelmed and I felt like heartache and all of the things going through, like, it was very traumatic. Our first couple of years were very, very traumatic. And I couldn't even imagine walking away. And I told the boys that when they were really little, I'm like, I will never leave. I'll never give up on you. Like, you're my number one and I will trade everything for you. I literally quit my job, sold everything, moved to California with no job. And I just knew that I was going to pick them first.
I think there's a big misconception with stepmothers, right? Like, the world wants to say that, oh, it's a part-time job, or like basically you only see the kids, you know, here or there, and the other mother is very involved. And while that may be the case in some situations, the world and a lot of online media doesn't talk about the other side of things, right? Because myself, I walked into an instant family, right? When I got married, I took on my son, you know, who I adopted. But at the time, you know, the mother wasn't in the picture at all. And I had to take full responsibility of that. And I became mother. Like, I was the only person in his life. So I think that doesn't get said a lot in the media. Like, we always kind of look at stepmothers as somebody who just like doesn't really have the full responsibility. There's just not enough about women who are self-sacrificing, who take on that role completely, right? They don't just marry the man, they marry the entire family unit. Yeah. So you did that. And I want to ask you, like, when you first started dating Tito, was there like a big adjustment stepping in with a single father? Like, what was one of the major adjustments that you had to handle?
Well, stepping into even just into Tito's world, obviously everyone, you know, knows that it was a very tumultuous time in his life. It was very difficult. He actually had 2 nannies at the time. So when I came in to the picture, this is another thing that my mom taught me, and I don't think a lot of people take this into consideration either. When you're dating a single parent, you need to take in consideration how you're going to meet the children. You can't just be this person who shows up in their life. Yeah. So I was very strategic about how I was going to meet the boys. Like, I had been dating Tito for over a month before I was like, well, maybe we can have like a barbecue and we can have multiple friends come over and then you can introduce me as this new friend, because they're little, like they were only 4 years old. So for me, I was like, I have to be responsible in that way as a friend and as a person. And it helped a lot, though, that Tito and I have known each other since 2001. So I
was going to say, you guys knew each other for like a long time already. Like, you actually saw him go through that whole mess, you know, and
same thing on my end. I knew my husband in 2000. So yeah, it's a long time.
My question would be more like, when you decided you wanted to get into this, like, obviously it's Tito Ortiz, right? He is the Huntington Beach bad boy at the time. And, he is title after title, owner, right? He was like the king of the octagon, right? So like he was at this pinnacle point. So anybody can see like, oh yeah, of course, Tito Ortiz. But the man behind the camera, the man behind the scenes is different than what we see, right? And in the middle of that storm that he was going through, like, what made you stay? Because I mean, those probably were the darkest times for him, being a single dad and everything at the same time.
Well, this is the hardest part is, during all of that tumultuousness and that breakup and then, the custody battle and all of those crazy things, he was actually in a lull in his fighting career. And, when people go, oh, he just didn't, perform well. And it really wasn't that. Fighting is so 80% mental, and Tito is such a like emotional being. And because of how tumultuous his life was at home, it transcended, it was part of his fights. And that's why he was on like a losing streak. It wasn't going well. And then he all of a sudden was a single father of twins. And, when he and I just knew each other sort of from afar. We just knew each other from traveling. I actually didn't, he was not my type. he wasn't until I saw how he was with the boys. And I just saw him as a friend. But a mutual friend of ours was on Twitter before it was X, and he was like, hey, I'm so sorry you're a single dad. I'm thinking of you, brother. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I wrote to him and I said, they're really little. I'm like, are you okay? Like, is everything good? Like, do you need help with anything? And he's like, no, it's been really hard. And he told me he had an upcoming surgery. And I said, well, what surgery is it? And it's a replacement of meniscus. And I said, well, I've actually had an ex that had the exact same surgery. I wouldn't mind coming out and just helping you with your recovery. I said, as long as, the boys don't know I'm there, I'm totally down to help you with that. My mom's a nurse. I have that, that nurse in me. So I came out and I took off 2 weeks and I did his, rotation machine and ice machine and medication every 4 hours. But I just watched him, how in love he was with his boys. And he was watching the baby monitor and he wanted to be so involved. And he was just not the guy I thought he was, right?
That's a good point. I want to point out to the fact that I think as women, it's a plus that he's a single father. I think when for a woman to see a man as a single father, that's a plus. That's actually something that we like because it shows many things. It shows that he's able to commit to something. It shows that he, can take care of something, that he has a leadership position there. And I think that when it's a different thing, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a different thing the other way around. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah,
Glenn?
I know it is like, like for ladies, I mean, being a single mom, it's kind of a red flag.
Why do you think it's
for
so
a guy?
Different?
Well, because for a guy, like guys look at different qualities, right? For when women are looking for a mate, guys are looking for a different thing in a mate, right? We have prioritized things a little bit differently. You want safety and security, right? And there's nothing more secure than you see a man that takes care of his responsibilities and his children, that he's family oriented, right? Like that he enjoys his children. He enjoys, Tito fought for full custody of his kids. He went to court, he went to war for them. And so he's like, so that kind of character, that those actions speak about his character and who he is. So for women, that's really attractive because that sense of security right there. Okay, he's not going to up and leave me. He's not going to up and just skip out in the middle of the night. Like he has roots here. Like, that gives a woman some sense of, security.
Mm-hmm. I also think like for us, a single father really embraces the role that a mother plays, right? So like for me, my husband was like, this is your domain, like take over. Like he never like was like a lot of single mothers would do like, no, you don't talk to my kids. You don't discipline my kids. They're my world. Like it puts a man in a position where he can't fully embrace the role. And I think that that's the difference too, right? Wouldn't you agree?
It's kind of interesting. Like, cause like when I got my divorce and like, my son was still, young, I was like, like I told the girl like, look, you're not mom. You don't have to be mom. His mom's in the picture. So like, it wasn't like, that he didn't have mom anymore. Right.
So
Like, it
let's
just like,
talk about that. Let's talk about that. So
yeah.
Amber, can you tell me, like, with your situation, was the biological mother in the picture?
Well, when we first started dating, the only way she was in the picture was social media, pretending that she was fighting for her kids. So it was just very like, it was a barrage of hate. And for the first time in my life, I was being hated on. I've never had hate in my life, which was because I've just
you got a lot of hate too.
Oh my God. I literally I have probably 200 pages of fake accounts telling me to like kill myself and all kinds of crazy stuff, calling me a single white female, that I stole someone's life. And like when I talk
home
about
wrecker,
Tito,
there was the home
I got
wrecker.
all of it. Oh, I got it all.
Yeah.
I got every dirty thing you could say about anybody.
It toughens you up.
Yeah. What's crazy is because like when I was doing prep for this topic, like I actually went through all that. I'm like, oh my God, you got like attacked.
Yeah. So basically she didn't actually practice what she preached. She never actually showed up for the kids.
No.
See, in my situation, the biological mother completely abandoned my son completely,
Well,
like to the point where I would try to get her involved.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't even show up at all. Yeah. Like she would leave him disappointed every single time. Yes. So I think like in Glenn's situation, the biological mother was wanting to be involved, right?
Yeah.
So, you're going to have that come into play as
well.
well.
And like I set it up as like, look, like, just because like, we're in a relationship doesn't make you number one necessarily. Like I have an obligation to my children. I have a priority. They're my priority. They're my responsibility. I have a duty here. And this duty was before you. So that doesn't mean that you're not important. It just means that you're not, they're there first. That's my responsibility first. Right.
So that does switch though. So,
it does. As like, they get older.
When I started dating him, he like the boys were his number one. And I was very carefully treading, like when you were talking about like, disciplining and taking over in the family unit, they had nannies and they had gotten really used to basically treating the nannies like mom. And for me, I knew that was an unhealthy relationship because Tito was working all the time and he was training all the time and he was still fighting and traveling all the time. So it was an easy step in for me. And, I worked with the nannies really closely and, dealing with the biological mom, honestly, she was completely gone. She left them disappointed. She wouldn't show up to their visitation. She would show up without money. She would show up under the influence. So they were left at the park crying. And that's when Tito got full parental and physical custody of them.
Was that the moment that you realized, okay, I'm the mom now at that point?
I don't think so. I really, I knew that the nannies had them safe and had been protecting them all these years. But for me, when I started to feel like the mom was, as we gradually had no more nannies and no more housekeepers. And I was like, listen, like, if you want me to be your person and be here, full time, like, these are the things I do, like, as your companion, as your partner, like, I can clean the house and I can raise 2 children all by myself. I don't need nannies. And I wanted them to feel like they had that person who is their grounding, somebody they can always go to when they cry, when they go to when they're happy. And that's what I wanted to establish really fast.
Okay. So that's a good point. I don't want to miss this. Yeah. You decided to say no to outside help. You said you took on your role seriously and you wanted to take that responsibility fully. And I think that's very commendable. We have to talk about this, and we have to talk about that there are women that do this, okay? Because in my situation, for instance, my son at the time was very young and he was being raised by all types of people, like similar to what happened with you, whether it be babysitters, family, grandma, right? And in that time, there was a lot of things that were not helping him or not conducive to him growing up to be a man, right? There was no chores list. He was given chicken nuggets and fries every single day for every meal. He didn't even learn how to swim or ride a bike or even tie his shoelaces. He was given Velcro sneakers, okay? Because this is all it's enabling happening from people who literally are watching the kid. They're supposed to be given the responsibility of childcare, but they're not actually raising the child. They're
I want
watching, they're
I
babysitting.
want some like Velcro sneakers. Like,
So this
Yeah.
I
is a
mean, what,
good thing
can I
because
get them light up? Can I get the light up ones?
Get the
so
wheel, get the Heelys.
this is going to go into my next question. What is the one thing that women underestimate when dating a single father? Because like you took on that full role, I took on that full role, and I said no to outside influence, and I got a lot of hate. I got a lot of kickback because everybody had gotten used to controlling the situation and doing as they wanted to. So when I said no, this all stops. He needs a mom. He doesn't need somebody spoiling him. He doesn't need somebody enabling bad behavior. He needs somebody with structure and roles. So what was that? What's something that you'd want to tell women like that they would underestimate dating a single father?
Well, that's and that's really hard too. And you have to be an incredibly strong woman, but you also have to have have been raised right. So my mom was a really tough mom, and I talk about this all the time. She's like, I wasn't tough. I'm like, yes, you were, but it's a good thing. And when I first started taking on the role of disciplining, because my husband is a total softie, people like see him for this bravado and this ego and this bad boy, but he definitely is not. He is like, I call him Disney dad because he's like the fun dad. He does all the fun stuff until stuff gets real. And that's only now that they're 16 does stuff actually get real where dad has to.
Yeah, I'm not going to call him that. I am not.
But
you could get away with that shit, but I'm not going to get away with that.
Some of the strongest men are big teddy bears, and I think.
Oh yeah, no.
This is important because the more love, the more you have to give somebody, the more harder you are going to be on the outside because you know you have a lot to give and you're not going to just give that freely.
Totally.
That's why, tattoos, piercings are great deterrents. You know what I mean? Like, just be covered in them. Like, I don't know. Just look mean. Just look mean. And then you just look scary and then nobody wants to talk to you.
No. Well, here's the thing is, when I first started disciplining the boys, Tito had a really hard time with it. He was like, you're way too tough. You're way too hard on them. You're being too hard. I don't want you to talk to them like that. And then he kept reiterating how he felt as a child, but he also had heroin addicts as parents.
Yeah.
He was very checked out. And he was basically raised from TV and his friends' parents. So when real disciplining came into play, and like Gia was saying, my boys ate two separate full meals. One had waffles, one had pancakes, one had bacon, one had sausage, one had white egg whites, one had regular eggs. And then I was like, no.
Everyone was catering to them.
I'm like, I'm not catering to a 4-year-old. I'm like, you get a choice of what is breakfast or you get no breakfast. Like, that's just how it works. And I'm like,
who went hungry? Did anybody protest? Was anybody stubborn and be like, you know what?
Yes,
I get my waffles, damn it.
I have one who is like my oil to my vinegar. He's like my little evil genius. And he would literally like sit there with a mouthful of food and just not chew it for like 20 minutes. I'm like, bro, either swallow it or spit it out. Like, we got to go. And he'd be like, oh, it's like cry and spit it out. I'm like, oh my God, you're such a baby.
So,
yeah, same thing with me.
Here's my question. Like, you weren't just dating a regular guy. Like, there's cameras everywhere. Like, paparazzi, everything. What was that like? Did you feel like, you were representing him? So like, how did he feel that extra pressure of being like, if you did something wrong, it's good, or did something stupid, or it's going to come out on him?
No, not about the kids. Here's the funny thing. And, I had my own sort of celebrity before meeting Tito, and every man that I dated, even my ex-husband, like they were seen as Amber's boyfriend or Amber's husband. So it was really weird to flip the coin and all of a sudden be Tito Ortiz's new girl and new girlfriend and new this or that. And so it was a little heavy for me to like all of a sudden sort of have to be almost meeked down because I was always very alpha in my former life and in my former relationship. But when I started getting called gold digger and all these things, and I'm like, you guys don't understand. Like, I owned, several houses and cars and boats and motorcycle and like all the things. In every other relationship, I literally sold everything to be with these little boys, and they were my number one. I mean, even above Tito. And that's, that's a crazy thing to say, but I always knew I wanted to be a mom. And some people are made to be moms and some aren't. And you'll see that in their biological. She wasn't meant to be a mom. She was meant to birth these children so that I could be blessed to raise them.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Now, you said you were very masculine or very like dominant in your other relationships.
Yeah.
What about this relationship allowed you to fall into that feminine and follow his lead? What
Isn't
was it
that
about?
nice?
Like what was there? Because that is something that I think a lot of women need to like be aware of. Like, hey, when you see these things, this is a good sign. You could relax. You could, come back a little bit back in your feminine.
Yeah. Well, I think it was, I actually know it was him just saying, as long as you make peace in my home and bring me peace and take care of me and my boys, I'll always take care of you. And it took me a while to understand that because I was so used to being like the breadwinner and making all of this money. And then I went from making a lot of money to making zero money. And now, on the internet, I'm being called the nanny and the home wrecker and the housekeeper, and I'm being called all of these crazy things. And it's really hard, especially for somebody who I was telling
You
you, I was
built
like,
yourself up.
who,
Like
yeah, I had,
yeah.
I had paved the way as the first Octagon girl. I had been modeling since I was 5 years old. I had been in, commercials and all of the things. It was really hard to like sit back and go, okay, I'm not earning anything. And, being a mom is a pay, you're not getting paid for it. It's most times a thankless job, but it's most rewarding because that what you pour into it is going to come back. It's going to come back, and you're going to watch your kids dazzle people and be charming and be good boys, especially when they're around other people. They may not be good with me, but they're going to be good with everybody else.
I say this a lot, but unless you've walked in somebody's shoes, you don't fully understand it, right? So people always think that they want a high status man or even a woman that has status or whatever. And I keep telling them, no, be careful what you wish for, because it is actually a curse. And there's a lot of scrutiny. There's a lot of expectations. As you said, double standards, people who completely peg you and label you in a way that they want to view you. And I think like you came from a position that you already had status. So it's not like what he had being in the public eye was a positive thing to you. If anything, it was a negative. You saw that as a red flag. Just like with me, same thing. I saw it as a red flag. That's the last thing I wanted was a man in the public eye. So this is a good point because a lot of people are going to say, well, you went after somebody because he had money. You said, no, that was a negative to you. That was a red flag. And then you had to take on being a mother to 3 boys. So there was a lot of responsibility there. You had to love the man, not the lifestyle, because you had the lifestyle already. And I want to point that out.
Yeah. It's so true. It's hard to explain that, right? And you just did it so beautifully. It just, when I decided to immerse myself into it, it really was a way to find my feminine, but it took years. It really did. And I can't say that it came easy. I really had a lot of really heartbreaking moments where, I didn't share how hurt I was and how hard it was. And I would cry in the shower and I wouldn't share how difficult things were. I just kept the happy smile on and the peace in the home and kept happy for the boys because that was more important than dealing with my own, my own demons that were happening online.
Well, also, if you had communicated that to the media or had opened up about the truth, you would have not only, it would have been a negative because of your husband. You don't want to put him in that position, right? That would look bad on him.
Yeah.
Right. So you're trying to stand up for him, make him look good. It would turn on you anyways, because you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's what the media does. It will 1 minute call a woman a gold digger and she's just there for money. And the next minute, if you come out and say, no, I actually helped, I supported him, I actually invested and brought my own money into the picture. I don't want anything to do with the fame. That now, oh, you're putting down your man. How dare you talk? Oh, look, you're humiliating your man and money. Like you can't win with the media. That's what they do. So it's a lot. Yeah.
It's well, and now that we're on the brighter side of things, like such a blessing. Tito for years said, I'm never getting married again. He was only married to his oldest son's mom. And, every interview, people would be like, are you going to get married? And he'd be like, no, we're okay with not getting married. And I'm like, we are okay. I'm like, okay. It was hard because I knew how tainted he felt. And I also did. I mean, I've been through a divorce and I understand that, a failed relationship kind of feels very personal. I mean, it should. But at the end of the day, when you find someone who has your best interest, does bring you peace, is your best friend. And I think that's why we were so blessed, is that we've known each other now for 25 years. We've been together for 13 years and we've been married for 3 years. I thought I was going to wait forever. He asked me on our 9th wedding or our 9th anniversary if I would marry him. I'm like, Jesus, took you long enough. He was like, I was going to make you wait 10 years.
He had to make you vet. Like, he's vetting you. He's like, look, I got to make sure she just, could do the kids thing right. And then she could fold my trunks the way I need them.
I say everything is earned. Nothing is owed to anybody. We all have to earn our own thing. So I want to get into how you maintain your identity and how you went forward after that point. But before we do, we're going to go on break, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Back.
What am I talking about, sir? You're not a sir. I'm a sir. If you look like this and you happen to be struggling with women, and if you like bubble baths and some other gay stuff, it's probably because you use body wash like Metro by Resto Chesto, the most anti-masculine body wash in the world. So if you're tired of being confused for a homo, then I suggest that you use Tactical Soap from Grondike Soap Company. It's a game changer. That's right, a natural pheromone soap that enhances alpha status, masculinity, attractiveness, and charisma. Only Tactical Soap could take you from zero to a hero with the ladies. If you want to get successful with the ladies like yours truly, Glenn Lawrence, then I suggest that you order it right now and get your own Tactical Soap from Grondike Soap Company today. Grondike Soap Company cannot guarantee that you will get a brunette and a blonde in the hot tub with you like Glenn Lawrence, but you may get a redhead. Hey, you. Yeah, you right there. Are you one of those guys who spend all day playing video games, crushing energy drinks, and then wondering why your joystick is the only thing that's getting any action? And do you cry during puppy commercials and like to blame it on your allergies? Yeah, I figured. Listen, what you might be suffering from is a very rare but modern condition known as masculine deficiency disorder. That's right, masculine deficiency disorder. Symptoms could include overanalyzing, oversharing, and a whole lot of underperforming. You know what I mean? Yes, you do. But don't worry. You don't need to schedule another therapy session with that guy that wears that cardigan and ask you how your inner child feels. And you don't need to take any more antidepressants that give you man boobs and emotional clarity. No, what you need is a Fauci-free vaccine. You know what I mean? Fauci-free. I'm talking no needles, no pills, just raw testosterone and righteous aggression. What's the solution? The solution is you going to the Full Spectrum Warriors Winter Summit this year. That's right, the Full Spectrum Warriors Winter Summit. Now, this ain't your typical 3-day man camp where you sit around singing Kumbaya while some bearded yoga instructor tells you to embrace your vulnerability. No, I'm talking about 3 days of hell-forged manhood. You'll be pushed to your limits, physically, mentally, and spiritually. You'll sweat, bleed, and you'll probably curse me out halfway through it as saying, why'd I even listen to Glenn? But you know what? By the end, you'll be walking out 10 pounds lighter, holding your head up 10 times higher, knowing that you're 10 times more dangerous too. We're talking about high-intensity training, cold plunges, bonfires, gunpowder, steak, and a brotherhood of warriors who will actually watch your back, not those weak friends of yours who said they couldn't do it because their girlfriend said no. So if you're tired of therapy and you've read all the self-help books and you've journaled all your feelings and you still feel like your balls are missing, well, it's time to stop overthinking and start overcoming. Sign up for the Full Spectrum Warriors Winter Summit today. Come test your limits, reclaim your fire, and rediscover the man that God has always intended you to be. Because listen, the only cure to masculine deficiency disorder isn't hugs. No, what the cure is actually discipline, grit, and a whole lot of gun smoke. Hope to see you there.
Full Spectrum Warrior Protector Summit, Winter 2026. Registration is now open.
And we're back. So we left off. You were saying something about the inner battles that you were having inside, the things that you were dealing with, like behind the scenes, that you were in the shower crying. What was that like? And when did that come to a head? Because I know at some point they had to come to a head where you and Tito had the conversation and had to bring that out. When was that and how did that go about?
So it was a long time, you guys. It was like 3 years. So I was like I completely lost myself for 3 years. I was just so absorbed into what social media was telling me I am in my head, right? But outside, I was doing all the mom stuff, all the wifey stuff, like all of the things that, looked pretty on social media. And it took me getting a restraining order against his former the biological mom. And I only got a temporary, and the judge had us both in there, and I showed him, she did a roast of Amber Nicole Miller on her Snapchat for like weeks, and they were just evil. But she had so many people coming after me and telling me all of these horrible things. But when I went into the judge, she actually brought and paid for a lawyer to get her off, because basically you can't get a restraining order. And this is what's like happens to women who are like beat by their husband. Like, this is crazy. But I had to prove that she said she was actually going to kill me or harm me. She couldn't just be joking and saying things she wished would happen. Like, oh, I wish she would, get her period in a Shark Tank. Like, it was like immature things like that. So I didn't get the restraining order, but the judge looked at her and he said, how old are you? And he's like, you need to grow up. If you contact her or write about her or write anything on social media about her again, he's like, I will slap that restraining order on you. So it ended there, and I regained my life. And I ran into a friend whose kid wrestled with our boys, and he was like, I'm a personal trainer. I would love to personally train you for shout outs on social media. And I was like, okay. And I mean, because I hadn't done anything. I hadn't been to the gym. I hadn't modeled.
And this is when you guys are still in Cali, right?
Yeah, still in Cali. Because this was our first 3 years together. So that was like 2013 to 2016. And I started working out for me every morning for an hour, and just being myself again, loving myself again, and feeling my strength again. And then I was like, okay, I need to find, a hobby or some kind of job that I can do from home that won't negate from me being a full-time mom. And, I launched a beauty business, and I launched permanent makeup, and I found myself again. And it was so rewarding. And I had, of course I had to tell Tito, I was like, it was really hard, but I was hard for me to share that with him, because he was already going through so much turmoil with his job, with his fighting career, with all the other things, with, finding out all the stuff in the court documents about, what was happening with the boys and getting full custody. It was really such a rocky and scary road that he was sort of throwing himself into work, and he was gone all the time. So I was sort of dealing with
he had an issue with Dana White and UFC at the same time, and Dana was at the same. From remember, he was like trashing Tito like really bad, and then Tito was transitioning into Bellator, right? And then he was going through that, and from what I understand, like he had like a real the custody battle was rough. Yeah. It wasn't easy, and it was like public.
Yeah. Well, I always say, if you're not fully grounded in who you are and what you stand for, the world will attach their own label onto you, right? So that's why it's very important. And I think fitness, I've always said, fitness is the gateway to all things successful. So it's really, this is a good point. Like, you attach yourself back to health and regaining control of your own narrative and what you stood for, because your entire personal life was in the public eye. And so is your husband, so is your child. I want to talk about a little bit about what the kids go through, because we tend to do that, right? We tend to talk about what like the husband or the wife is going through, but we always forget about the kids, because they're the ones who really get impacted. Those are the ones who like end up growing up, and it hurts their ability to have their own relationships. When she kept on, the biological mother, when she kept on like saying that she would show up and not actually show up, what are some of the things that you had to go through with the kids?
Well, I mean, it didn't last long, which was nice. When she didn't show up, when she no-showed to the park, and then when she showed up under the influence, and then when she showed up with no money and she left the boys crying at the park, it ended there. So it took like 3 times where Tito was like, I will not send them to the park and hope that their little hearts don't get broken again. So that's when he went in and he was like, that's it. I'm getting full physical and parental custody of the boys. And he put stipulations on her to be able to see the boys, which she has not done, nor will she ever. And she believed that she shouldn't have to be a mom. And, it was a 30-day or a 45-day in facility living. She had to do a 30-day rehab. She had to get real deep therapy. And she refused to do any of them. She didn't follow a single court order. So it was really like a simple transition. Once she stopped talking smack online, which she sort of does. Like over the years, she'll still come out and say that she's like a part of the boys' lives, which is like complete nonsense. And you sort of just have to laugh at her or with her. But it's been nice, she's completely checked out of our boys' life. And for me, it couldn't have been a better situation. And, myself, I've always wanted kids, and I found out that I wasn't able to have children. So and this is the craziest thing, is like, God does have a plan. And I dreamed of having twins my whole life. I told my mom I'm having twin boys.
Ooh, why would you want that nightmare?
It is so hard. Yeah, I didn't know what I was dreaming and wishing for, but I like dreamt it into fruition. But my mom was like, you can't just have twins. We don't have twins in our family. I'm like, I don't care. I'm having boy twins because they're cool. And that was my mindset. And so when it actually came to be and God was like, here you go, like, this is what you asked for, you don't know that it's going to be this hard, right? You don't know that you're going to go through these tumultuous things. You don't know how hard it is to raise two little personalities.
Being a parent alone is hard as it is, because being a step parent. I mean, I was a step parent, for several years before I got my divorce, and it was like about 12 years, 14 years. And it was rough because you're constantly dealing with that other parent, and they're, they could be interjecting their way, trying to overrule your home. And it's like, this person doesn't live here. They don't get to have this, say so. And it could be difficult. It could be really difficult. Luckily for you, it seemed like you didn't have so much of that influence because the kids were still young when Tito got full custody. Now, a lot of that had to do with probably his upbringing, because his dad he lost his business due to drugs.
Yeah.
And didn't his mom pass away due to drugs as well? No.
So both of his parents were heroin addicts from 6 years old to 13 years old. And then at 13 years old, his mom woke him up in the middle of the night and was like, we're leaving, and packed his bag in the middle of the night and moved him to Huntington Beach. And they left his dad, and his dad was like in the throes of heroin addiction.
Yeah.
And his dad just passed away last year, but he was still battling. He was in a wheelchair. His mom's actually really good. She's in her 70s. She's like a little hippie lady that lives. We own a house in Huntington Beach that Tito gifted her during his career, which was one of his dreams. And, she's living and she is thriving, and it's good. And, he credits her to like saving his life and bringing him away from that. And that, I'm sure that was hard for her. And Tito talks about this all the time, that like, he loved Jenna, and they didn't have babies out of love. I mean, out of like, this weird lustful relationship. They actually loved each other. They had full intention to raise these kids together, but he knew. And the therapist, when he was going through custody, was like, you need to stop trying to save your mom, because that's your mindset. And he said, you need to find someone who wants to save you. And during that time, Tito was still going to therapy when we started dating, and he went to his therapist and he was like, I'm pretty sure I found the one who's going to save me. So he said that
he said that on Vlad. He like on the Vlad interview that I was watching, he really like, the way I see it is like, you were his Proverbs 31 woman that came in at the right time.
Yeah. Women, I've said this a million times, women protect their man. And this doesn't go over too well online, because there's a lot of people that don't have experience in relationships. But in healthy relationships, a woman protects her man. And I want to kind of pull this conversation back to the kids, because I do want to touch on that. Like in my situation, my son went through a lot. Like every single time she would say she's going to show up and she didn't, he would go on full on, like taking a knife through the furniture and having like these crazy, emotional outbursts, and then he would write letters. Like he would think at one point, like it was my fault that I came into his life, that I ruined, the ability for his parents to get back together, so I went through this, and I went through doctors, because the family kept telling me, well, you need to go to a psychologist, or he needs this, or he needs that. And I was like, okay, like I'll visit it. I'll see, maybe they're right. So I visited a couple times, and I start realizing, no, like he didn't need doctors. He didn't need psychiatrists. He didn't need medication. He needed boundaries. He needed structure. He needed a real people who weren't going to keep coming, like saying they're going to be there and then leaving him. And I think that goes on with kids. Like they learn that everybody that they start to love is going to abandon them. And that creates hurt for them to be able to have normal relationships as they get older, because now they think, well, if I love somebody, they're just going to leave me anyways. So why bother?
Yeah.
So did you go through any of that?
It's so strange that you said that. And when I think we had this conversation a little bit, my mom actually told me that almost verbatim. Like make sure you make your own money because men always leave.
Yeah.
And that's such a crazy mindset, but I feel like that's what put me into my super alpha before I met Tito. Like I always owned all the houses, owned all the cars. I bought the boat. I bought the motorcycle. I paid for all the trips because it was like a control thing. I knew that if the bottom fell out, which my mom told me was going to happen inevitably, that I would have the money and I didn't have to worry about that. With Tito, like even with the boys, we have been really good about age and what they can comprehend and what is good to talk to them about and what's not. And when we started middle school, we went to family therapy because we know kids are jerks and parents are also jerks. And, you know, I didn't want the boys to go to school and have some boy or some dad or some brother say, oh, we know who your mom is, and then be blindsided by this information that they had no idea about. So we kind of had to open up to them and say, you know, this is what she formally did. This is what she did before she met dad. Like they had you out of love, but we just want you guys to be prepared. But we also prepared them with like something to say. And when I said, you know, if somebody brings it up and you just say, you know, she may have been my biological mom. She may have been the one that gave birth to me, but I'm raised by Amber and Amber's our mom. And I wanted them to have that armed, right? Because
so that's a good point.
Her.
Yeah, because you communicated to them, you let them know exactly what you're going to do going forward, and you know, and then you also practice what you preach, right? So it's like we can talk, we can communicate to our spouses, we can communicate to our kids, but unless we practice what we preach, it's not going to change. I know with my son, I told him when he would go into these crazy bouts, I'm like, listen, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how much you try to push me away. I don't care how angry you get. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm not one of those people. When I say something, I'm here. I'm always going to be here for you. And through time and through decades, he was like, okay, this person is actually what they say they are.
Yeah.
And
I think stepmoms and stepdads are different though. Cause like my stepdad was black and then he beat me like I was a runaway slave when I did anything wrong. But no, I say that jokingly because he would read the Bible and then he'll beat me with it. So I thought I was going to hell and then I got a whooping at the same time. So it was like this double whammy. But
okay, so so this is a perfect example of what our generation of kids are today. It's a product of our environment. It's what we've learned, whether we've had tumultuous relationships, you know, like if we've seen a parent leave our lives and not be there for us or not keep their word, now we think every relationship going forward is going to be the same thing.
Yeah, but you see, the good thing is like, and this is I always talk about this about my stepdad. My stepdad was very consistent. He was a man of principle and integrity. Like his yes was yes and his no was his no. Like there was no questioning. I already knew before I even got home if I was going to be in trouble or if I was going to be like good. Like there was he was that structured and that was very consistent. And that provided security and safety in that sense. Right. Even though he did beat me when I did something wrong.
Well, I mean, I mean, I was spanked. My mom.
That's what I mean by spank, but like, you know, it's just,
I don't see anything. I think I'm happy that she did it because it taught me like she wasn't doing it out of anger. It wasn't done in an abusive way, like how people want to say that spanking is. It was like there was a warning. There was a, hey, like this is going to happen if you continue to do this. And then there was, hey, this is going to happen when we get home. So it wasn't just like out of the blue anger. It was done in a controlled way. I think that there isn't that distinction much online.
Well, I love that you were just talking about difference between stepmom and stepdad. Like same thing with like when I had stepdads, like my mom didn't allow them to discipline at all. Like they weren't allowed to discipline us except for like, you know, small things like, you know, taking our shoes off at the door or those sort of like small details. But my mom
remind you to do your chores. Like, hey, did you do your chores?
My mom did all the disciplining, but I also am like the oldest of all my siblings. So I was like a second mom automatically. But even with our boys, like we just, you know, we're recently going through like a really rough season because they're 16 and they're testing their boundaries big. And now they're much taller than me, which is crazy. They went from being shorter than me last year to now being almost 6 foot tall. They're like 5'11".
Now, wasn't one of them like shot up before the other one?
Oh yeah. Journey, right? The one that looks just like Tito, Journey, he literally was like a foot taller than Jesse for the last like 3 years. When they were little, they always kept right in.
I thought there was an age difference. I swear to you, for the longest time, I was like,
it's funny because like, this is why I say fathers are important. So like for single mothers who are like, no, I don't need a guy in there. Like I'm doing everything. I'm the mom and I'm the dad. They say that, but because they have younger kids. And then as soon as those kids get around 16, 17, and they're now overpowering their mother, she can't enforce anything. No. So it's like, no, there needs to be two-parent households because the father takes over after a certain age, even for daughters, right? So let's talk about that because daughters, when they're young, they're easy. Like up until about 7, they're good. When they get around like 13, the hormones start coming around, they don't listen to nothing. And that's when the dad comes into play.
Well, boys and girls. My boys, like clockwork, 13 to 16 has been my current nightmare. Because it's really
you're learning patience, huh?
I relearn a lot of things, and they also are learning all these tag words from like social media where they're like, this is neglect and this is abuse.
Yeah.
And I'm like, child, like read your dad's book again, please. Read his book and then you'll know neglect. Read his book and you'll know abuse. Like, give me a break. You don't even know what that even smells like. But, now that they're taller than me, they try to like double team and like intimidate me. And I'm like, I have to like record them on my phone. I'm like, you would not behave like this if your dad was around. Dad would like snatch the life out of you. Like, what's wrong with you? But it's again, like, this is where we're moving on from being mommy's boys. And I'm glad, like, no matter how much I hate it and how much it like is breaking me a little bit in these last 3 years, like it's been really, really tough.
But they're starting to become men.
They're literally detaching from me, right? Like they want nothing to do with me. It's like I'm the bad guy.
As a mother, you're going to have to learn to let go. So this is something I had to learn. Okay. Yeah. Because at 16 it started. And at 18 is when he really I could not enforce anything in the home. I mean, there was weed. Like I found weed one day, then, a girlfriend in the room. And I'm like, no.
They were just studying. They were studying.
This is not happening. No. If you want to do this, you need to get your own apartment. Yep. You need to have your own, like, this is not happening here. I'm not going to condone and enable this kind of stuff. So
it was health class.
So that's when literally, I had to learn to detach because at a certain age, when they're gone, when he's like, I'm going to move out. Okay, fine. Move out. Go live life. Go see what it's like. And it took several years. Like, I think like 24 is when he finally came around. He was like, yeah, now I get it. Like, you were right. I was just like fighting you, but it takes a while for them to come back and be like, you were right. So sometimes as a woman, like I say the best thing about with our husbands, like being feminine, being in our true feminine, you got to learn to let go too with them, right? Like completely relinquish control. That's when sex gets better. That's when the relationships get better. Like I tell women this all the time when they go, oh, no, I don't agree with his way of doing something. Or I think that he should go and like talk to his mother. And I tell them all the time. And I'm like, no, you don't tell a man how to handle his own mother. Yeah. Let the man handle his family how he needs it. Detach, let go. So it's hard. It's hard for women.
Yeah. Well, and detaching just from all of those like commitments for me again, like, and I feel like maybe this is just from, my parents weren't together as of age 2 or 3. So I never knew them together. So I've known several step parents. And I hate that word, but it wasn't hard for me to detach from that kind of stuff with Tito, which was nice because it wasn't hard for me to detach from, and I find myself, and this is like definitely like my tendencies, but I always like date someone who has, mommy issues and like, has sort of a tumultuous like history.
You knew your like attachment theory.
Yeah. Well, and it's me. I want to be the fixer, like, because I want to be able to go, look, this is how nice life can be. I can provide all of this,
Oh no. How did that work out for you?
It took like a long time, it took a long time. And we found common ground because it's, he also was dealing with his own demons, he was, he's born of addiction. My boys were also born of addiction. So now for me, with somebody who does not have addiction in my life and I don't understand it fully, I do understand the tendencies. I do understand the compulsiveness and the impulsivity. And so I have to be really understanding with all three of my boys, because I know that this is a lifetime struggle. Unfortunately, it's going to be a lifetime struggle. So even when they act out, or Tito, throws himself into work to get away from like what's happening at the house, like I have to understand that's their coping mechanism, whereas I'm a full speed ahead. Like when there's an issue, I deal with it immediately. Mm-hmm. When somebody has something to talk about, I talk about it immediately. And that's just simply not how everyone is. And you have to be really good about, okay, I got to pull myself back and find another hobby or find something to do with myself when I'm trying to be like intense.
I want to encourage you and tell you that like you took on the boys when they were young. I took on my son when he was a year old, so very young. Yeah. And there's a point, like we think as moms and as wives, we think, okay, well, we're raising them, so they're going to be like us. But I learned, because he's now 28 years old. Yeah. I learned I was so wrong. I was so wrong. Yeah. They have their own minds, and they are going to take they ultimately we all have our own choice, right?
Biology's going to...
We have to remember that they're half their biological mother. Yeah. So if their biological mother doesn't keep her word and she lies, you're not going to get that out of them. Like that's in them. And they're going to have to ultimately either break the chains of that and say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be like that person. Or they're going to go, no, I want to be like that person. Yeah.
Well, I think that some of it is learned behavior, and I think some of it is biology. Yeah. I think the way like you conduct yourself and the way that you present yourself, that's more of a learned behavior, right? I think biology is going to be more like what are you drawn to naturally. Especially if there was drugs, being done during the like that, they're going to have this like more of an addictive personality, or they could end up developing some type of antisocial disorder due to the narcotics, right? But I don't necessarily think like, if it's more what is involved, who's around you, what you're being raised around, what examples do you have is going to be more how your behavior is going to be in your temperament. But I wanted to ask a question when it came to Tito, how was he with you? Because I mean, he's had a rough life with women, with his mom being addicted to heroin, with, his first marriage not being successful at all, ended shortly. And then him and Jenna and all the issue that he was going through. Did you see like he was kind of reserved, like with trust, or like how was that like, and how did that work for you? Like, did you feel like you had to like do more than normal, like to try to prove yourself? And did you have any resentment with that?
Oh my gosh, I love that question because it's so true. It's literally this is the relationship I actually fought for, and for me, my mom always used to say, as long as you let her fly, and have this personality, like you'll be good. Don't try to lock her down. And that was every other relationship. And I've never, ever in my life had to try so hard for a man. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of humbling. It was a lot of letting go and shedding that, that tough exterior, but also like, being protective, because he didn't know what a real relationship was until we started dating, and he says this all the time is, he wanted the white picket fence and all of those like things you see on television, and there's no such thing, right? But when we started dating, he was still in kind of like single man's mode, like he was like on dating apps and he was like, traveling all the time. And I was still sitting at home, and it was crazy because I was like, okay, I have to humble myself because he doesn't know what it's like have a woman to come home to that like is his everything, because he's never had anybody like share in his goals.
Well, would you say that both of you guys probably didn't know what that relationship was like, because you've always played the dominant role, you said, in the relationship. So you never been able to fall into your feminine and actually be that submissive wife. You always had to have that like get out of jail free card just in case, this time you put all in, you put all the chips on black, and you're like, this is it. It's either going to work, it's going to not, So like, I think this is like for you guys both, like, what was that like? Because you had to deal with some insecurity issues. And then he also had some issues that he had to deal with. How did you guys navigate that trust building and those problems early on that kept you guys still going? Because it had to be rough at first.
Well, and I think, like I started this segment with you guys is I anchored myself in the boys, and I even told myself, listen, even if this doesn't work out, a couple of like years of sadness to make sure these boys have somebody who puts them first and raises them and loves them and takes them to school every day and does all their parent teacher conferences and goes to all their things. Like for me, I was like, I know how valuable that was in my life with, the parents that I had in my life. So I knew, like, I was like fully aware that like this could end at any moment, and I had to just be okay with it. And I humbled myself into that space where I was like, when he's with me, he's 100% with me. Like he makes me feel like the only one. He's intense. He's a great lover. He's like, he's in tune with things that, bring me joy. He's very thoughtful. But when he wasn't with me, he was like a totally different guy because he was used to putting on this like persona and this act for the public and for his buddies.
You had to be the bad boy. He was the bad boy.
So it took many, many years, and it took a lot of humbling. And I feel like, it's funny. We always talk about like how people lost most of their marriages and their relationships during COVID. Literally 2020 made us the closest we've ever been. And it's because we were stuck at home and really getting to know each other on such a deep level. We ate every meal together. We talked about
it was removing the ego. You had to remove the ego. So I say this to women, you have to relinquish the crown to really have progress in the relationship, because women are kind of always told that they're the best. They, shouldn't deserve anything better than the best, or put on the prize. And no, like for your husband, he had to relinquish the crown. He had to take that off and actually see things in a very grounded reality way. And choose that.
Yeah, it was hard for him. It was hard for him to, again, with a healthy relationship and with somebody who chooses him and puts 100% into the relationship. He was riding high on this ego of being this big guy and being this, superstar. And I was one of the people who was like, I love that you're a star. And I would constantly tell him, how proud I am of him and how hard he works and how much I loved him. And, but I always made him know that like, the boys for me, they're keeping this grounded. They're keeping me here. They're keeping, me in this place where I wanted to show him that, the boys will always be taken care of. The boys will be happy. And when he comes home, there's always peace. And he's not a talker. He's the silent guy. When he gets hurt or he does something wrong, or, he's hurt my feelings or hurt me in some way, he would just rather shut down and not talk. And I am like a, straightforward person. And I really had to start slow with him, because when I was forcefully like making him talk to me, it was like not ending well, obviously. So I had to like be strategic with how I brought the conversation and the hurt and the pain and the different like conversations. So
you probably loved him for who he was, not for any of the outside stuff. Yeah. So it didn't matter if he was known or not known or whatever he did as a career. That could care less. And I think that's probably why it drew you closer. We have to kind of close it up soon, but I do want to make sure that I ask you, if you were to talk to women today and you were to give them a message and like what it's like, tell women today what they need to think about going forward with a single father. Some of the things they need to keep in mind. What advice would you give them?
Well, my advice for women, if you are, considering dating a single father, I mean, that is their number one, obviously, when you first start dating them. And if you attach yourself to the family in such a way that your whole heart is in it, and that you're not holding back anything because of maybe another parent, I think that is the most success. I have my dad's wife right now has always been so loving. So she's like my second mother. And that is what I wanted to model my life after for the boys is you can't just love half. You can't love partially. You can't love on your own expectations or your own level. Little kids don't understand that. So I think for a single father, you have to, I feel like you need to love those kids like he loves his kids, and your relationship will be so much stronger because you now have that one huge, most important thing in common is that your love for those kids. And if you take them on and you say, I don't care, if they have their mom in the picture, wonderful. It's even better. You should be the bigger person and you should love those kids with your whole heart and not reserve. I see a lot of step parents reserving. I see a lot of step parents.
They think they're marrying the man and they don't have to marry the kids. Like they don't think that it's a unit. When you marry the man, you marry his children. It's a unit 100%. You're marrying. So I think I want to encourage women that it's definitely a plus that he's a single father. It's not the same as dating a single mother. I don't care what you say. It's different. And when you decide to be with a single father, you take him and you say yes to those children and you become a mother. It's an instant family.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask you, because I want to bring it back to current times, right? You being a mom of 3 boys, you see what's going on in the dating market. I mean, although you are out of the game, but you see what's in social media. You see what's the talking points both men and women are saying. Are you concerned about your boys when it comes to dating? And how did you guys approach that? Did you guys teach them about vetting? Did you guys talk to them about what to look for, what not to look for? Because I mean, they're 16, so hormones are going. The oldest one, I think, is what? He's in college
22.
already. Or 22. Okay.
I think he's 23 now.
Okay. So, I mean, how have you guys helped navigate them, when it comes to relationships and dating, and keep them what to look out for, what to stay away from? Yeah. Have you guys had those conversations?
I deal with that more, I think, with Journey because he is a little mini Tito. So he's been the one that's had multiple girlfriends and very serious about his girlfriends. They're saying I love you in a couple of weeks, and these girls. So I've had to have several conversations with him, and I'm you have to understand, girls are very highly
Send
emotional.
Him to Glenn.
Yeah, I'm don't say I love you unless you actually mean it. It's not fair to throw that word around. And then, he had this one girlfriend that I called the sexy girlfriend, and I'm I don't like this girl. I just want you to know.
Oh, she a hoe?
Well, she was taking pictures in her stories, in her bra to her friends. But
she a hoe. She a hoe.
In her friend circle, I was her friend and his brother was her friend. And I'm if she's cool with showing her bra to your brother and me and whoever else is in her friend group, that's the sexy girl. You don't need that girl in your life.
Now, how did you, because I mean, at one point in time, you guys both were considered the sexy girls. So did you have was that kind of weird? Oh, this little hoe trying to send these movie pics to my kid?
Well, the boys, they tell me all the time, they're it's really weird. All of our friends think that you're hot and we think it's weird. They're but they all are afraid of you. And I'm wait, I'm mean and hot. I just scored the best mom card ever. I'm yes, I like that your friends are afraid to mess around in my house, but they also think I'm hot. I'm I'll take it. So with the little girl that was the sexy girl, I was son, listen, this is going to end bad. I just want to prepare you. Don't pour all your, your love and your affection and everything into this little girl. I'm going to let you, let this relationship run its course. But I'm just forewarning you that it's probably going to end bad. And she ended up cheating on it with multiple boys and made out with a girl, all this crazy stuff. And he was he was devastated. And I'm son.
Only women, no other women. I keep saying that over and over.
Yeah. I was boy, I'm going to tell you, I'll let you know. This is what's going to happen, but
guys can't read women's intentions a woman can read another woman's intentions a mile away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're about to wrap up, but I wanted to touch base on this. It was last September. You, Tito, and the boys decided that you wanted to give your life over to Christ and get baptized. What did Tito lead that? Was that a family conversation, or how did that go?
So it's crazy. So I've always had faith, and in California, I actually had a faith group that I was a part of, a women's faith group called Fearless. And it was such a savior for me. So I started taking the boys to church when we lived in California, and Tito didn't want to go. And the one time I took them, they were talking about revelations and how we should be excited to die and be with Jesus and all. And he was I don't like church. He's I don't want to die. I don't want to celebrate, going to be with Jesus. So he stopped going to church completely. So when I moved to Cape Coral, I found a church a friend had recommended. I started going with the boys. They loved it automatically. And I started taking Tito, and something just within him clicked. And he was like, oh my gosh, I want to go every Sunday. It feels so good. They actually did an interview on him. It was part of, having a good circle around you when you're, a champion. Because, he talked about how lonely it is when you lose, and how not lonely it is when you're winning, because you got everybody. And he just really connected with our pastor. It was so incredible. And he just looked at me and he's like, I think we should get baptized. And I was like, really kind of shocked, because I definitely was open to the idea. And I was like, I think that would be awesome for our whole family. So he's like, okay, I'm going to make us an appointment. Like, he called the pastor right away, and he was like, when can we come? I really want to, I want my whole family to get baptized together. So it was really cool.
Yeah, I keep saying that we all have physical, spiritual, and emotional needs. And if either of us are missing one of those, we'll fill it up with the wrong kind of voids, usually distractions or addictions. So it's something that we don't think we need, at first, but then when we finally experience it, we're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. This makes us have more direction in life or purpose. So that's probably what happened.
Yeah. It was good. Well, because it was right after we started our restaurant, and, the restaurant was giving him purpose, but it wasn't like keeping him in a place where he was grounded, like we would go out and have cocktails, and he'd go out after work, and he was staying away from the home because it's been really hard with the boys. We've gone through all kinds of crazy stuff, getting alarm systems and putting ankle monitors on our boys, and getting like really creative with how we were going to keep them in the house. And, he was sort of hiding away from that because he was like, oh, it's just going to get worse. And, through faith and through our church, like, it's brought him just, I think, a more level head. Even when he talks about our relationship, even when we talk about how we're going to raise the boys, he approaches it and is more open to conversation. And that's why I'm so excited that, like, we're a part of the church.
Very cool. So do you think, I want to kind of close this up with, we always like to leave solutions at the end. Like, that's kind of our thing. What is something that you would be able to give either women or men getting into a relationship with kids, whether it be a single mother or single father? What's some solutions that you can give them? Maybe like one or two that would help them in that relationship, just overall do better with the kids and their mate.
Well, I think number one, and it's key, is to have conversations and really talk about what your common goal is, especially with the littles. For me, it was really big. I wanted to know what he wanted for the future for the boys, like what was his like main goal for the littles, because I needed to make sure that I was establishing that as well, so that dad was a part of like the wrestling regimen and, the physicality. And even when they were little and they would get in trouble, like, it wasn't like punishments. We were like, okay, cool, you're going to run stairs for an hour, which was like a lot when you're like 10 years old, but it was so good. And it was such man building time, but it was something that dad would implement. And when you're going to date a single mom or dad, like, you need to find out what those things are, what those common grounds are, what you actually want and need for your children. Do you need structure? Do you need somebody who's going to be on top of their schoolwork? Like, Tito's not a schoolwork guy, and he's not going to.
Neither am I.
He's not going to do those, but he's a great cook, and he's very physical. So he's like all about like being their wrestling coach and, teaching them. And I taught them how to cook really young at like 10 years old. They were so into like cooking. But we had that common ground. We knew what we wanted. You
knew what responsibilities that you both took on, and you own those roles. I got you.
You have to. Somebody has to choose what role they're going to take, because it's going to get fumbled if both of you are like, do these chores or do this around the house. Like, it should be one person who's setting those goals, and then you both can make sure they're upholding, right? Like, both of you can make sure that they're actually doing those chores and doing what they promised they would do, and even at school. So, but it has to be structured, and you have to choose a structure. And honestly, it's a bummer, but most women like are chosen as the bad guy because we are the feminine, and it's easier for us to like set that structure, be the bad guy, and then dad gets to, reap the rewards of being the good guy. It's the good guy, bad guys, but.
Well, that's actually a lot of things I noticed with like both. I think that's an issue for both. Like, whenever you're dealing with a single parent, is that they feel that they need to, they feel guilty that their child, they have this divorced family, this broken home, and they're trying to compensate. They're trying to
exactly,
out of guilt. And kids will pick up on that. Kids will abuse that if they could.
That's why I say you have to have a united front.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's always a learning curve. But you know what? We got to wrap it up. Never mind, I won't say it. But
we're gonna do another one, and we're gonna get into where you've got, where you are today, because we'll plan that out, because we have a whole another segment on that. But thank you for coming on, Amber. It's always a delight. We could go on all day, I know.
Yes. I'm quite the talker.
Well, we have me and Amber have so much in common. It's it's crazy. They say similar.
Tell Tito I'll dust off the gloves, and we could, never mind. I'm just kidding. I just don't want none of those problems. But I'll knock out Chuck Liddell for him, though. I will.
Glenn walks in with a dominant presence. Voice cuts deep like a sermon with essence. Gia steps up, pure, elegant grace. Beauty with brains puts the world in its place. They light the mic, that truth ignites, burning through the fake in the dead of night. No labels, no camps, no tribal cage. They're carving out truth on an empty page. They're relentless warriors, forged like Thor. Modern Viking knocking down every door. You can't pin them down, can't put them in a box. They'll stomp it flat and break your locks. Ceilings, please, they leap sky high, shattering limits you set with a lie. They'll lead in the way, believe that. No simps, no saints, no soft disguise. They see through the games and the alibis. They're not here to please, they're here to lead. Truth and balance, yeah, that's the creed. It was boom, energy of truth on fire. They're calling out the world's desire. From fake ideals to moral decay, they're lighting up the modern age. No one's safe, not the church, not fame. They're flipping the script, rewriting the game. Love and logic, heart and soul, saving the truth for this nation's soul.